Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 was the reincarnation of an ancient alien god and got harem of Julie, Attea and Looma. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Echoes of Divinity. The dreams had started 3 months ago, on Ben Tennyson's 19th birthday. Tonight's vision was more vivid than any before it. Ben stood atop a crystalline spire that pierced violet clouds, overlooking a sprawling metropolis of impossible architecture. 6 moons hung in formation overhead, each a different color, casting prismatic shadows across the landscape. The air tasted of ozone and something sweeter, like remembrance. "You built this," whispered a voice that seemed to emanate from both everywhere and nowhere. "Your hands shaped these towers. Your will bent reality to create this sanctuary." Ben tried to speak, to deny these impossible claims. But his mouth formed words in a language he'd never learned yet somehow understood perfectly. The mathematical precision of each syllable resonated through his body like the stroke of a tuning fork. "I am not you," Ben tried to say, but the words that emerged were, "I am awakening." He jolted upright in bed, sweat-drenched sheets tangled around his legs. The digital clock on his nightstand displayed 3:17 a.m. in harsh red numerals. The same time he'd awakened every night for weeks. Ben ran trembling fingers through his disheveled brown hair and exhaled slowly. "Just a dream," he muttered. But the lingering sensation of ancient knowledge pulsed behind his eyes. The omnitrix on his wrist gleamed in the darkness, its familiar green glow offering comfort. Ben had worn many versions of the device over the years, but this latest iteration from Azimuth was sleeker, more intuitive. He'd grown into his role as its wielder, no longer the impulsive child who first discovered it in the woods nearly a decade ago. Something flickered in his peripheral vision, a brief luminescence that vanished when he turned toward it. This had been happening with increasing frequency, phantom lights, whispered voices in empty rooms, the sensation of being watched by ancient eyes. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. At this hour, it could only be plumber business. He swiped to answer. "Tennyson," came Rook Blanco's measured voice. "We have a situation at the old observatory. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Magister Tennyson suggested your immediate presence would be prudent." Ben was already pulling on his jeans. "On my way." The summer air hit his face as he stepped onto the balcony of his modest apartment. At 19, he'd finally gained enough independence to live alone. Though his grandfather's plumber base was just 10 minutes away, Ben activated the Omnitrix with practiced precision, cycling through to XLR8 and slapping down the dial. The transformation didn't come. He tried again, receiving only an unusual vibration from the device. No error message, no timeout warning. Just a strange harmonic resonance that traveled up his arm and settled in his chest. "Come on," he muttered, tapping the face of the device. As frustration built, something unexpected happened. A tingling sensation spread from the Omnitrix through his fingertips. And suddenly his perception shifted. The world slowed around him, exactly as it did when he transformed into XLR8, except he hadn't transformed at all. He remained completely human, yet somehow channeling a Kinesolaran's speed. "What the?" Ben staggered against the railing, his human body struggling to process the alien sensory input. The effect vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving him disoriented and breathing heavily. He didn't have time to analyze what had just happened. The observatory needed him. Ben took the conventional route, his car, and sped through the empty pre-dawn streets of Bellwood. The abandoned Bellwood Observatory stood silhouetted against the fading stars, its once proud dome now cracked and weathered by years of neglect. As Ben pulled into the gravel parking lot, he noted 3 plumber vehicles and the distinctive shape of Rook's proto-truck. "Quite the welcoming committee," he murmured, killing the engine. The moment his feet touched the ground, he sensed something was wrong. The air felt charged, similar to the atmosphere before a lightning strike. Each breath tasted metallic, reminiscent of his dream. Ben Tennyson. Rook emerged from the shadows, his feline features tense. "We detected a subspace rupture 30 minutes ago. The energy signature matches nothing in our archives." Ben nodded, following his partner toward the observatory entrance. "Any visual confirmation on what came through?" "Nothing concrete. The surveillance drones malfunctioned upon approach. Your grandfather is inside with a containment team. The observatory's interior was bathed in the blue glow of plumber tech. Max Tennyson stood at the center of the chamber, his weathered face illuminated by a holographic display. Age had whitened his hair completely, but had done nothing to diminish his commanding presence. Ben. Relief softened his grandfather's features momentarily before returning to professional concern. We've got something you need to see. Max gestured toward the dome ceiling where the observatory's telescope once pointed skyward. In its place hung what appeared to be a tear in reality itself, a vertical fissure of swirling cobalt energy approximately 3 feet in length. It's growing, Max explained. 1 inch every 17 minutes. And it's emitting radiation patterns that match celestial wavelengths, Ben finished. Unsure where the knowledge had come from. Max's eyebrows shot up. Yes. How did you? I don't know. Ben approached the anomaly, drawn by an inexplicable familiarity. I just knew. The rift pulsed as he drew near, as if responding to his presence. Within its swirling depths, Ben glimpsed fragments of otherworldly landscapes, some resembling the vistas from his dreams. We should evacuate, Rook suggested. His proto-tool raised defensively. The energy readings are becoming increasingly unstable. Before anyone could respond, the rift expanded violently, doubling in size with a thunderous crack. The observatory trembled, dust and debris raining down from the deteriorating structure. Through the widened portal, a form began to emerge. Defensive positions, Max ordered, as plumbers scrambled for cover. The figure that materialized was humanoid but clearly alien, tall and slender with ashen skin stretched over an angular frame. Its eyes were vacant hollows that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Most disturbing was the symbol emblazoned on its forehead, a configuration of lines and circles that triggered an immediate shock of recognition in Ben's mind. The Celestial Templars have found you, usurper, the being intoned, its voice resonating with harmonic undertones. Your awakening will not be permitted. It raised a hand, revealing elongated fingers tipped with crystalline claws. Energy coalesced around them, forming a sphere of pulsating darkness. Ben reached for the Omnitrix instinctively, but before he could activate it, the stranger hurled the energy sphere directly at him. Time seemed to slow. The projectile moved through the air with deceptive leisure, trailing wisps of reality-distorting power. Something ancient stirred in Ben's consciousness. Without conscious thought, he raised his hand, palm outward. The gesture felt practiced, inevitable. A shield of emerald energy materialized before him, intercepting the attack. The Koli Scion produced a shockwave that shattered every window in the observatory. Everyone, including Ben, stared in shock. That wasn't the Omnitrix, Max said carefully. The intruder's hollow eyes widened. Impossible. The awakening cannot have progressed this far. It raised both hands, preparing a more powerful assault. Ben, get down, Rook shouted, opening fire with his proto-tool. The energy Y bolts passed harmlessly through the being as if it existed partially in another dimension. It ignored Rook completely, focus fixed entirely on Ben. The Templar Conclave sentenced you to eternal dissolution, Celestis, it hissed. Your pattern was scattered across 10,000 realities. You cannot return. Celestis. The name reverberated through Ben's mind like a forgotten melody suddenly remembered. With it came a flash of knowledge, techniques and powers never learned yet somehow intimately familiar. Ben's body moved with autonomous precision. His hands traced complex patterns in the air, leaving trails of luminous green energy. The symbols he drew resembled nothing in human language but felt like his native tongue. I don't know who you think I am, Ben said, his voice overlaid with a deeper resonance. But you picked the wrong planet to invade. The completed pattern of symbols exploded forward, enveloping the intruder in a matrix of light. It shrieked, a sound like crystal, shattering, as its form began to destabilize. You, remember, it gasped, its body dissolving into particles of light. The Void Weaver will rise again without your binding. The Conclave will find you. With a final pulse of energy, the being disappeared entirely. The rift contracted violently before winking out of existence, leaving the observatory in sudden, stunned silence. Ben stared at his hands, which were still trailing faint wisps of energy. The power he'd channeled wasn't from the Omnitrix, it had emerged from somewhere deep within him. Max approached cautiously. Ben, are you all right? Ben began, then staggered as exhaustion hit him like a physical blow. His knees buckled, and darkness claimed his vision before he hit the floor. He dreamed of stars being born. His hands, not his current hands, but larger ones with skin like burnished gold, reached into the cosmic furnace and drew forth possibility, shaping it with thought and will. Mathematics and music were the same language here. At the foundation of reality, he sang equations and calculated harmonies, bringing order to primordial chaos. Beside him stood 6 figures, their features indistinct but their presences familiar and beloved. Together they wove the fabric of creation, each contributing a unique element to the cosmic tapestry. Remember, one whispered, voice like the space between heartbeats. When darkness comes again, remember what we built. Ben awakened to the sterile environment of the Plumber Medical Bay. The overhead lights were dimmed, suggesting night had fallen. His body felt leaden, muscles aching as if he'd transformed into forearms and spent hours lifting mountains. Welcome back, Sleeping Beauty. The familiar voice drew his attention to the bedside chair where a young woman sat. Dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, warm eyes studying him with mixture of relief and concern. Julie. Ben pushed himself up on his elbows, wincing at the effort. When did you get back from Tokyo? Julie Yamamoto set aside the tablet she'd been reading. 5 years of on-again, off-again romance had eventually settled into a comfortable friendship, one complica. Ted by her studies abroad and his responsibilities as both a plumber and bearer of the Omnitrix. 2 days ago, I was planning to surprise you, but then ship went crazy. She gestured to the small Akin green blob curled at the foot of Ben's bed. The galvanic mechamorph upgrade let out a contented chirp at the mention of its name. He started projecting all these strange symbols and coordinates. When I decoded them, they all pointed to Bellwood. Ben glanced at Ship with newfound interest. What kind of symbols? Julie tapped her tablet, bringing up an image that made Ben's breath catch. The pattern of circles and lines matched exactly what he'd seen on the intruder's forehead. You recognize it, she observed, watching his reaction closely. It was on that thing at the observatory. Ben hesitated, unsure how much to reveal about his dreams. Julie, something weird is happening to me. You mean besides channeling unknown energy forms and speaking dead languages? Her MPT at lightness couldn't mask her concern. I spoke a different language. Julie nodded. After you collapsed, Max said you were murmuring mathematical equations in a language that doesn't exist in any Earth or Plumber database. Ben rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure of unreachable memories. I've been having these dreams. The door slid open, interrupting their conversation. Max entered, followed by a thin, white-haired figure that Ben recognized immediately. Azimuth, the first thinker, creator of the Omnitrix and arguably the most intelligent being in 5 galaxies, regarded Ben with uncharacteristic uncertainty. The diminutive Galvan rarely left his laboratory on Galvan Prime, and never without significant cause. Your grandfather suggested my expertise might be required, Azimuth stated, his tone more subdued than his usual impatient delivery. Based on the preliminary data, I'm inclined to agree. Max placed a reassuring hand on Ben's shoulder. How are you feeling, son? Like I went 10 rounds with Way Big and lost, Ben admitted. What happened to me, Grandpa? Max exchanged glances with Azimuth before answering. We were hoping you might have some insight. The energy you manipulated wasn't from the Omnitrix, Ben. It came from you. Azimuth climbed onto the bed, approaching the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist with analytical interest. The device is functioning normally, yet it appears to be resonating with something within your biological matrix. English, please, Ben requested. Something inside you is talking to the Omnitrix, Julie translated. It's speaking a language only the Omnitrix understands. Azimuth shot her an approving look. Indeed. Most astute, Ms. Yamamoto. He turned back to Ben. I need to run some tests. The next few hours passed in a blur of scans, samples, and increasingly complex diagnostic procedures. Julie remained by Ben's side throughout, occasionally helping translate Azimuth's technical terminology into comprehensible explanations. Finally, Azimuth stepped back, his expression troubled. Well, Max prompted. It is unprecedented, the Galvan admitted reluctantly. Ben's DNA is undergoing a form of quantum evolution. The changes appear to be activating dormant genetic sequences previously undetectable by any known scanning technology. You're saying I'm mutating? Ben asked, alarm evident in his voice. Transforming would be more accurate, Azimuth corrected. But not into any catalogued species. Your quantum signature is beginning to resemble certain theoretical patterns my people have obs. RVED only in the oldest strata of the universe, remnants from the early formation period after the Great Expansion. Julie's scientific mind engaged immediately. You're talking about the beginning of the universe. Approximately, yes. Azimuth's large eyes narrowed in thought. There exist ancient Galvan texts that speak of entities who existed in that primordial era. Beings of immense power who could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. The intruder called me Celestis, Ben said quietly. It said I was sentenced to eternal dissolution by something called the Templar Conclave. Azimuth froze, his green complexion paling visibly. Impossible, he whispered. You know the name, Max observed. A myth. A bedtime story told to young Galvan. Azimuth's voice had lost its usual confidence. Celestis was said to be one of the architects, beings who existed before most life as we know it. The legends claim they created the fundamental laws of physics, established the boundaries between dimensions. Even seeded the first DNA across barren worlds. And this Celestis was sentenced. Julie prompted. Azimuth nodded slowly. According to the stories, Celestis create tools of immense power, devices that could alter reality on a whim. The other architects feared such technology and banished Celestis, fragmenting his essence across multiple realities. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. And now those fragments are, what? Reassembling inside me. It would explain the genetic anomalies, Azimuth admitted reluctantly. And perhaps, he trailed off, staring at the Omnitrix with newfound wonder. Perhaps what? Max pressed. Perhaps why the Omnitrix responded to Ben so uniquely from the beginning. Azimuth's voice was barely audible. It recognized something in him, something that resonated with its core design principles. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Ben stared at the ceiling, mind racing. If what Azimuth suggested was true, then everything he thought he knew about himself was only a fraction of a much larger, cosmic truth. I need air, Ben announced suddenly, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. Ben, the tests aren't complete, Max began. I know, Grandpa, I just need a few minutes to process this. To his surprise, it was Azimuth who supported him. Let him go, Max. The boy has just had his entire identity called into question. A moment of reflection is warranted. Max reluctantly agreed, and Ben made his way to the observation deck of the Plumber base. The facility had been expanded significantly in recent years, with the upper levels offering a panoramic view of Bellwood and the star-filled sky beyond. Ben leaned against the railing, gaze fixed on the constellation Orion. The three perfectly aligned stars of the belt had always brought him comfort in times of uncertainty. Tonight, however, he found himself looking beyond them, toward the empty space between stars where ancient eyes might be watching. You're taking this remarkably well. Julie had followed him, her soft footsteps barely audible as she joined him at the railing. Am I? Ben smiled wryly, because internally, I'm freaking out. That's the Ben Tennyson I know. She bumped his shoulder gently with her own. Saving the universe on the outside, total mess on the inside. The familiar teasing loosened something in Ben's chest. With Julie, he could always be himself, or whatever himself now meant. What if I'm not me anymore, Julie? The question emerged more vulnerable than he'd intended. What if these memories or powers or whatever they are take over, and Ben Tennyson just disappears? Julie considered this seriously, her scientific mind visibly working through the problem. Do you remember when Ship first bonded with me? Quote. Ben nodded. I was terrified I'd lose myself, that this alien technology would override who I was. She reached down to stroke Ship, who had followed her and now curled around her ankle affectionately. But that's not how symbiosis works. Ship didn't replace me, he enhanced what was already there. We became something greater together than either of us could be separately. You think that's what's happening to me? Some kind of symbiosis with an ancient alien god? I think Julie said carefully, that whatever Celestis was, he couldn't have chosen a better person to merge with than Ben Tennyson. Your core, Ben, your fundamental self, is too strong to be overridden. Before Ben could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the base. Red emergency lights began pulsing along the corridors. Perimeter breach, announced the automated security system. Unknown hostiles approaching main entrance. All personnel to defensive positions. Ben and Julie exchanged glances before rushing toward the command center. They arrived to find Max coordinating the defense, his expression grim as he studied the security feeds. "What are we dealing with, Grandpa?" Ben asked. Max pointed to the main screen where a dozen robed figures approached the base with methodical precision. They appeared out of nowhere. Same energy signature as the being from the observatory. More celestial Templars. Ben murmured, the knowledge surfacing from somewhere deep within. "They're after you," Julie concluded, watching as the intruders moved in perfect unison. Ben straightened his shoulders, determination replacing uncertainty. "Then let's not disappoint them." Outside the plumber base, 12 figures in hooded robes of midnight blue formed a perfect circle. Each raised a staff topped with a crystalline focus that glowed with inner light. As one, they began to chant in a language of pure mathematics, each equation building upon the last to create a complex algorithm of destruction. The ground beneath the base trembled as reality itself began to warp under the concentrated assault. Cracks appeared in the reinforced exterior walls, spreading like lightning across the structure's face. Within the command center, systems failed in cascading sequence. Emergency generators kicked in only to short out moments later. They're unraveling the quantum cohesion of the entire facility. Azimuth observed with professional admiration despite the dire circumstances. "Quite impressive." "Not helping, Azimuth," Max growled, trying unsuccessfully to establishe communications with Plumber headquarters. Ben studied the attackers on the remaining functional monitor. Their synchronized movements triggered another flash of recognition. "They're using a celestial binding theorem," he said, again unsure of the source of his knowledge. "It's designed to isolate and extract quantum signatures across dimensional barriers." "They're trying to rip Celestis out of you," Julie translated, eyes widening. "Can they do that?" Max asked Azimuth. The Galvan's expression was grave. "If Ben's transformation has not progressed far enough, the process could potentially succeed, though it would likely prove fatal to his human form." "That's not happening on my watch," Max declared, retrieving his specialized plumber weapon from its wall mount. "Rook, assemble Alpha Team for perimeter defense. We need to disrupt their formation." Ben raised a hand. "No, I need to face them." "Ben," Max began to protest. "This is my fight, Grandpa. They're here for me, not the plumbers." Ben's voice carried a new authority, not the brash confidence of his youth, but something deeper and more measured. "If I stay inside, they'll tear this place apart trying to get to me." Max studied his grandson's face, seeing something ancient behind the familiar green eyes. After a moment, he nodded reluctantly. "We'll provide backup." "I'm coming with you," Julie stated, her tone brooking no argument. Ship morphed around her body, forming a sleek battle suit that enhanced her natural agility and strength. The symbiotic armor had evolved considerably since their early adventures, now featuring advanced weapons systems and adaptive shielding. Ben smiled at her. "Wouldn't have it any other way." Together they made their way to the base's entrance. Ben paused before the doors, hand hovering over the Omnitrix. "If the device is truly resonating with your emerging abilities," Azimuth suggested through the communicator, "try working with it rather than merely activating it. Feel the connection between your consciousness and its matrix." Ben nodded, closing his eyes. Instead of the usual twisting motion to select an alien form, he placed his palm flat against the Omnitrix's face. He reached for that strange current he'd felt earlier, the power that had surged through him at the observatory. The Omnitrix responded with a harmonic pulse unlike anything he'd experienced before. Green energy spiraled up his arm, not transforming him but augmenting him. His senses sharpened dramatically. He could feel the quantum vibrations of atoms in the air, taste the electromagnetic spectrum, hear the subtle movements of subatomic particles. "Ben." Julie's voice sounded distant through the rush of new sensory input. "Your eyes." He caught his reflection in a darkened monitor. His eyes glowed with the same emerald energy that now traced patterns across his skin, intricate circuits of power that followed the natural lines of his body. "I'm still me," he assured her, surprised to find it was true. He hadn't transformed into an alien form, nor had he been overwhelmed by Celestus's consciousness. Instead, he'd accessed something that felt like a more complete version of himself. The doors slid open, and Ben stepped outside to face the Celestial Templars. Their chanting faltered momentarily as they registered his presence. "Celestus," intoned the central figure, lowering its hood to reveal a face of living crystal with fractal patterns where eyes should be. "Your resurrection violates the Conclave's judgment. You will be unmade." Ben spread his hands in a gesture of peace. "I don't know what happened between you and Celestus, but I'm Ben Tennyson. I'm just trying to understand what's happening to me." "Deception," hissed another Templar. "The architect's cunning is legendary. He speaks with a mortal tongue while gathering his power." "The evidence is before us," agreed the first. "The binding protocol detects Celestus's quantum signature growing stronger within this vessel. The infection has progressed too far for extraction. The vessel must be destroyed." They raised their staffs in unison, the crystal focuses blazing with intensified energy. "Wait," Ben started, but was cut short as 12 beams of concentrated force converged on his position. Julie reacted instantly, ship's armor forming a protective dome around them both. The shield held for precisely 3 seconds before beginning to crack under the assault. "Ship can't sustain this level of quantum disruption much longer," Julie warned, her voice strained as she and her symbiote partner fought to maintain the protective barrier. Something shifted in Ben's perception. The Attea's energy wasn't just light or heat, it was information, complex mathematical formulas designed to unravel the bonds holding matter together. Without conscious thought, his hands began tracing counter-equations in the air, green energy following his fingertips. "Julie, drop the shield on my mark," he instructed, completing a final flourish in his impromptu calculation. Now, ship's protection dissolved, but before the Templars' attack could reach them, Ben's equations materialized as a spiraling matrix of emerald light. The opposing forces collided in a spectacular display of mathematical warfare, each theorem countering and canceling the other in bursts of multi-dimensional logic. The Templars faltered, clearly unprepared for such sophisticated resistance. "Impossible," the leader gasped. "The human vessel cannot possibly comprehend 7th-order quantum calculus." Ben advanced, continuing to weave increasingly complex patterns with fluid gestures. Each movement felt natural, as if he'd performed these calculations countless times before. "Maybe I'm a quick study," he quipped, allowing a bit of his usual Ben Tennyson personality to shine through. The Templars abandoned their unified approach, scattering to surround him in a wider formation. One thrust its staff into the ground, creating a localized reality distortion that rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Ben recognized the attack pattern and countered with a precise motion, stopping the distor. Tian waved with a barrier of concentrated energy. Another Templar attempted to open a portal beneath his feet. Ben responded by reversing the spatial coordinates with a flick of his wrist, causing the portal to collapse in on itself. Julie, meanwhile, wasn't idle. Ship's armor reconfigured into an offensive mode, allowing her to engage the Templars from Ben's flank. Years of tennis had given her exceptional reflexes, which translated seamlessly to combat. She targeted the Templars' staffs, correctly identifying them as focal points for their powers. "Their crystalline matrices have a resonance frequency," she called to Ben, her scientific mind analyzing as she fought. "If we can match it, we can shatter their focus crystals," Ben finished, immediately grasping her strategy. "Ship can generate the right frequency if I provide the calculation." Without breaking stride in his defensive maneuvers, Ben transmitted a complex equation directly to Ship. The galvanic mechamorph processed the information instantly, reconfiguring Julie's armor to emit a precisely calibrated sonic pulse. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Templars' crystal foci began to vibrate uncontrollably, cracks spreading across their surfaces. Several shattered entirely, sending their wielders staggering backward as feedback surged through their connection. "Retreat," ordered the leader, its own staff now glowing unstably. "The vessel has accessed more of the architect's knowledge than anticipated. We require the dissolution engine." As suddenly as they had appeared, the Templars vanished, not thr. Our conventional teleportation but by seemingly folding themselves out of reality, leaving behind only faint traces of exotic particles. Ben exhaled slowly, allowing the green energy to recede from his skin. The heightened perception faded gradually, returning him to normal human awareness. Exhaustion hit immediately, his knees buckling under the strain of channeling so much power. Julie was at his side in an instant, ship's armor providing support. That was impressive, she said, helping him back toward the base entrance where Max and a team of plumbers waited with weapons ready. I don't know how I did any of that, Ben admitted quietly. It just flowed through me. You were beautiful, Julie whispered, then quickly added, I mean, the equations. They were beautiful. Ben glanced at her, surprised by the comment. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of how fundamentally this situation was changing everything, including, perhaps, their relationship. The moment was interrupted as a new alarm sounded from within the base. Not the breach warning this time, but the distinctive tone indicating an incoming transmission on a priority channel. Magister Tennyson, called a plumber operative from the doorway. We're receiving a direct communication from the Incarsine Empire. Emperor Milius is dead. Empress Attea is requesting immediate diplomatic contact with. The operative hesitated, checking his display with confusion, with the one who bears Celestus's light. Ben and Julie exchanged startled glances. How could she possibly know about this already? Julie wondered. Ben shook his head, remembering the dreams of 6 figures standing beside him at the foundation of reality. I don't know, but I have a feeling. Things are about to get a lot more complicated. The plumber communication center hummed with activity as technicians established a secure channel to the Incarsine flagship. Ben stood before the main view screen, still processing everything that had transpired. Julie remained close by, ship having reverted to his blob form but staying vigilantly attentive at her feet. Max entered, his expression troubled. Ben, are you sure you're up for this? Attea isn't exactly known for her straightforward diplomacy. I need answers, Grandpa. If she knows something about what's happening to me. Max nodded reluctantly. Just be careful. The Incarsines have never been our allies, regardless of who wears the crown. The screen flickered to life, revealing the familiar face of Princess, now Empress, Attea. The young Incarsine ruler had matured since their last encounter, her features sharper and more defined. Gone was the impetuous teenager, in her place sat a calculating sovereign draped in royal regalia. Ben Tennyson, she greeted, her amphibian lips curving into what might have been either a smile or a threat display. Or should I address the architect directly now? The rumors of why our awakening have traveled faster than light across the 7 empires. Ben straightened, projecting confidence despite his internal uncertainty. Empress Attea, I'm still Ben Tennyson, regardless of what you may have heard. Attea's large eyes narrowed slightly. For now, perhaps, but we both know what's happening, don't we? The stars themselves whisper of Celestus's return. She leaned forward, voice lowering conspiratorially. The question is whether you remember me. The strange phrasing caught Ben off guard. Remember you. We've met several times over the years, usually with you trying to conquer something. A curious expression crossed Attea's face, something almost like disappointment. Not in this life, perhaps. But before, when the universe was young and alliances were different. Behind Ben, Asmith made a small, startled sound. Impossible, the Galdan muttered. Unless what? Julie whispered to him. Asmith shook his head. The legends speak of companions who stood with Celestus at the formation of reality. 6 beings of complementary power who helped shape the cosmos. On screen, Attea continued. The death of my father has freed me to pursue certain historical interests of our people. The ancient chronicles of Incarsine speak of a pact between our ancestors and the architect. A binding agreement sealed in the early days of creation. What kind of agreement? Ben asked cautiously. Attea's tongue flicked out briefly, an Incarsine gesture indicating either amusement or anticipation. One that grants the royal bloodline of Incarsine a privileged position in the cosmic hierarchy. One that I intend to claim. Is that a threat? Max asked, stepping into view. Quite the opposite, Magister Tennyson. It's an opportunity. Attea reclined in her throne. The Celestial Templars have already made their move, yes. They'll return with greater force. The Void Weaver stirs in the spaces between realities. Ancient powers are awakening throughout the galaxy, drawn by the ripples of Celestus's emergence. Ben felt a chill at the mention of the Void Weaver, the same entity referenced by the first Templar at the observatory. How do you know all this? The royal bloodline carries memories. Attea tapped her temple significantly. When my father died, knowledge locked in our genetic code transferred to me as the new sovereign. Knowledge of what came before, and what may come again. She leaned forward suddenly, her expression intensely focused. I'm coming to Earth, Tennyson. The Incarsine Armada will arrive in 48 Earth hours. Not as conquerors this time, but as allies. The declaration caused an immediate stir among the plumbers present. The Incarsines had never approached Earth with anything but hostile intent. Why should we trust you? Julie asked, stepping forward beside Ben. Attea's gaze shifted to her, a flicker of something unreadable passing across her features. The human speaks boldly. Is she one of them, I wonder? One of the six. Before anyone could respond to this cryptic question, Attea continued, you need me, Tennyson. The knowledge I possess, the forces I command, they will be essential in the coming conflict. And she paused, her composure slipping momentarily to reveal what appeared to be genuine concern, I need to confirm whether the prophecies are true. Whether you are truly him returned. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the communication center in stunned silence. Well, Ben said after a moment, that was cryptic. And concerning, Max added. An Incarsine Armada approaching Earth, regardless of stated intentions, requires immediate preparation. As the plumbers mobilized to address this new development, Ben found himself drawn to the large observation window overlooking Bellwood. Night had fully descended, the city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars. Above, the actual stars seemed somehow closer, more attentive than he'd ever noticed before. You're quiet, Julie observed, joining him at the window. Just trying to process everything. Ben gestured vaguely at the sky. 24 hours ago, I was just Ben Tennyson. Now I'm AP. Apparently the reincarnation of some cosmic architect with ancient aliens calling me by another name and an Incarsine empress claiming we had some kind of pact at the beginning of time. Julie studied him thoughtfully. It's a lot to take in. That's putting it mildly. Ben ran a hand through his hair. And these dreams I've been having, they're starting to feel less like dreams and more like memories. Tell me about them, Julie encouraged, her voice gentle. Ben described the visions, the crystal spires, the sense of ancient knowledge, the six figures who stood with him at the foundation of reality. As he spoke, Julie listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions with scientific precision. It sounds like your subconscious is processing fragments of Celestus's memories, she suggested when he finished. The human mind isn't designed to handle cosmic-level awareness. It's compartmentalizing the information, presenting it in ways you can comprehend. That's actually helpful, Ben admitted. Makes me feel slightly less crazy. Hey, I didn't spend 3 years studying xenobiology for nothing. Julie smiled, then grew serious again. What about Attea's claim? About being one of these 6 companions? Ben shook his head. I don't know. In my dreams, I can never see their faces clearly. Just their essence, I guess. Their presence. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the command center. Rook appeared in the doorway, his normally composed demeanor visibly shaken. Ben, you need to see this. They followed him back to the main Moni touring station where a new alert had appeared. Satellite imagery showed a massive object entering Earth's atmosphere, far too large to be a conventional spacecraft. That's not the Incarsine Armada, Max stated grimly. Their arrival isn't expected for another 47 hours. As the object descended through cloud cover, its features became clear. A tremendous floating structure resembling a crimson fortress, bristling with weaponry and trailing banners bearing an unfamiliar insignia. Identification protocols are returning a match, announced a technician. It's a Tetraman Royal War vessel. Ben's stomach dropped. Tetraman, as in 4-armed species. Indeed, confirmed Rook, and they are broadcasting a very specific message. He activated the audio channel, and a powerful female voice filled the command center. I am Princess Looma Red Wind of the House of the Crimson Flame, daughter of Warlord Gar, heir to the Tetraman throne. I come seeking Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, my betrothed, whose blood carries the essence of the cosmic architect as foretold in the ancient prophecies of our people. Let him come forth and fulfill his destiny, or let Earth face the consequences of denying cosmic law. Every eye in the room turned to Ben, whose expression had frozen somewhere between shock and disbelief. Betrothed, Julie repeated, her eyebrows raised. It's complicated, Ben muttered, wincing at the memory of his inadvertent engagement to the Tetraman princess years earlier, a situation he believed long resolved. Apparently it just got more complicated, Max observed dryly. Ben stared at the massive war vessel now hovering over Bellwood, its weapons systems powered but currently dormant. As if this day couldn't get any stranger, now he had an alien prince. SS claiming their engagement was somehow connected to his emerging cosmic identity. First Attea, now Looma, he mused, a pattern beginning to form in his mind. Both royal bloodlines, both suddenly very interested in me, or rather, in Celestis. The legends mentioned 6 companions, Julie recalled Azimuth's words. You've potentially got 2 showing up within hours of each other. Which raises the question, Azimuth interjected, his small form appearing beside them, who are the other 4? And what will happen when all 6 converge? Ben didn't have an answer, but as he watched Looma's W.A.R. vessel settling into a holding pattern above Bellwood, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn inexorably toward a cosmic reunion billions of years in the making. I guess there's only one way to find out, he said, straightening his shoulders with renewed determination. It's time to talk to Princess Looma. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Fractured Memories. Dawn broke over Bellwood with unnatural brilliance. Ben stood on the plumber Basie's landing platform, squinting against the morning light that seemed to fracture into spectrums previously invisible to human eyes. He could distinguish 13 distinct color variations in what should have been a simple sunrise, colors that had no names in any Earth language. You're seeing it differently, aren't you? Julie asked, noticing his transfixed expression. Ben nodded. It's like someone upgraded my eyes overnight. I can see particles of light separating and recombining. He gestured toward the horizon. That deep azure band beneath the crimson layer. That's Cronin radiation, time particles interacting with atmosphere. I shouldn't know that, but I do. Julie studied him with scientific interest. Your brain is processing sensory information beyond normal human parameters. The quantum changes Azimuth detected must be affecting your perceptual framework. Sadezu ne. Ben replied absently in perfect Japanese, then blinked in surprise at himself. Julie's eyebrows shot up. Since when do you speak Japanese? I don't. At least, I didn't. Ben rubbed his temples. It just came out. Like accessing alien abilities without transforming. Above them, Looma's massive war vessel maintained its holding pattern, crimson hull gleaming in the morning light. Plumber ships circled at a respectful distance, maintaining a defensive posture while avoiding any action that might be interpreted as aggression. Are you ready for this? Max asked, approaching from the base entrance. His weathered face carried the ain of a sleepless night coordinating Earth's response to not one but 2 incoming alien armadas. As ready as I'll ever be, Ben answered, straightening his shoulders. Has she agreed to the meeting terms? Max nodded. Princess Looma will shuttle down with a minimal honor guard. No weapons, though she insisted that, as a Tetraman, she herself constitutes a weapon and cannot be separated from her natural abilities. Hard to argue with that, Ben conceded. A smaller craft detached from the Tetraman warship, its design ornate yet functional, clearly built for both ceremony and combat. It descended with precision, settling onto the landing pad with barely a sound despite its considerable mass. The shuttle's hatch opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing Princess Looma Red Wind in full royal regalia. Her imposing Tetraman frame stood nearly 9 feet tall, clad in ceremonial armor that combined traditional Tetraman design with technological enhancements. All 4 of her arms bore intricate markings of rank and lineage. Her expression was stern yet expectant as she surveyed the welcoming committee. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, she announced, voice carrying the weight of royal decree. I, Looma Red Wind, heir to the crimson throne of Tetraman, come to claim what was promised both in this age and in the time before time. Ben stepped forward. Princess Looma, Earth welcomes you as a diplomatic visitor. Though your message contained language that could be interpreted as threatening. Luma's 4 eyes narrowed slightly, assessing Ben with newfound interest. You speak with greater formality than I remember. Beloved, perhaps the awakening has progressed further than our seers anticipated. The awakening, Ben repeated. You mean these changes happening to me? You know what's causing them. Of course. Luma descended the shuttle ramp, her honor guard, 4 additional Tetraman warriors in lesser but still impressive armor, following at a respectful distance. Prophecies have been part of Tetraman culture since our earliest records. When the architect's essence returns to flesh, the 6 shall gather and the binding shall be renewed. Julie moved subtly closer to Ben, a gesture not lost on Luma, whose upper right eye twitched in what might have been recognition or irritation. Perhaps, Luma suggested, we might continue this conversation in more appropriate surroundings. A royal discussion conducted on a landing platform does dishonor to all parties. Of course, Max intervened smoothly. We've prepared a meeting room. This way, Your Highness. As they proceeded inside, Ben noticed something odd about Luma's honor guard. Though they maintained perfect Tetraman military posture, they repeatedly performed a subtle gesture when they no one was watching. 4 fingers pressed briefly to their foreheads, then to their hearts. They're not just soldiers, Ben murmured to Julie. They're religious attendants. How can you tell? She whispered back. The gesture they keep making, it's a devotional sign. I somehow know it's ancient Tetraman for, the divine flows through all things. Ben frowned. But I've never studied Tetraman religious practices. Julie squeezed his arm reassuringly. More knowledge surfacing from Celestus's memories, I'm guessing. The conference room had been hastily modified to accommodate Tetraman physiology, with reinforced seating and higher clearances for their considerable height. Azimuth was already present, standing on the table with his arms crossed in his typical posture of analytical impatience. Once everyone was seated, Luma requiring a specially reinforced chair that groaned slightly under her weight, Max officially opened the discussion. Princess Luma, perhaps you could explain the purpose of your visit in greater detail. Your transmission mentioned prophecies and a betrothal. Luma fixed her 4-eyed gaze on Ben. The matter is simple. Years ago, Benjamin defeated my father in honorable combat, thus becoming my intended by Tetraman law. Though circumstances later complicated this arrangement, the ancient blood right remains valid. I thought we resolved that situation, Ben said carefully. Your father released me from the engagement. A temporary accommodation, Luma acknowledged with a dismissive wave of her lower left hand. One made before the awakening began. The circumstances have fundamentally changed. She leaned forward, intensity radiating from her powerful frame. The marks of Celestus are upon you, Benjamin. Our most sacred texts speak of this moment, when the architect returns to physical form and reclaims his 6 consorts. Consorts, Julie repeated, voice sharpening. Luma's gaze shifted to her. Yes, the 6 who stood W. Ith Celestus at the foundation of reality, each representing a fundamental aspect of existence. Together, they formed the cosmic sextet that brought order to primordial chaos. Her upper right hand gestured toward Ben. And you, Benjamin, bear Celestus's essence, awakening after eons of dormancy. That doesn't automatically make me your fiancé, Ben pointed out. No, Luma agreed unexpectedly. It makes you far more. In Tetraman tradition, the return of Celestus heralds the time of ascension, when the strongest shall be tested and found worthy of standing beside the architect. She straightened proudly. I have trained my entire life for this moment, though I did not understand its true purpose until recently. Azimuth, who had been uncharacteristically silent, finally spoke. Your understanding of these events seems remarkably specific, Princess. The Galvan archives contain only fragmentary myths about Celestus. How is it that Tetraman knowledge is so comprehensive? Luma's expression shifted to one of solemn pride. Because, creator of the Lesser Ring, the Tetraman royal bloodline descends directly from Koragan, the strength aspect of the original sextet. We carry the genetic memory of the beginning time. The room fell silent as this claim settled over them. Ben exchanged glances with Julie, whose scientific mind was clearly racing to process the implications. Genetic memory, Julie mused. Like what Attea mentioned about the Incarsine royal bloodline. Luma's reaction was immediate and fierce. The Frog Empress claims connection to the sextet. She slammed a fist on the table, cracking its reinforced surface. Typical Incarcine deception. Their bloodline is diluted, corrupted by generations of conquest and interbreeding. So Attea is also claiming to be one of these consorts. Max clarified, his expression growing increasingly concerned. The Incarcines preserve fragmented legends about Slithora, the adaptation aspect, Looma admitted reluctantly. But their connection to the original bloodline is tenuous at best. Ben raised a hand to interrupt what was clearly developing into a complex theological dispute. Let's back up. You're saying, gee, that both you and Attea believe your reincarnations are descendants of beings who existed with Celestis at the beginning of time. And now that I'm changing, you both want to reclaim some kind of relationship with me. Not just relationship, Looma corrected. Sacred union. The prophecy of reunification is clear. When the six stand with the architect once more, reality itself shall bend to their combined will. We are destined to reshape existence, Benjamin. An uncomfortable silence followed this declaration. Ben felt the weight of cosmic implications pressing down on him, along with the more immediate awkwardness of having his complicated love life suddenly elevated to metaphysical significance. The tension was broken by an alert from Max's communicator. He checked the display, his expression growing even more troubled. We have another situation developing, he announced. A civilian archaeological team has uncovered something at a dig site outside town. They're reporting unusual energy readings and artifacts bearing symbols matching those from the observatory incident. Ben straightened. I should check it out. Julie corrected firmly. Looma rose to her impressive full height. As you're intended an aspect of strength, I shall accompany you as well. Max looked like he wanted to object but recognized the diplomatic complexities at play. Fine, but this is still a plumber operation. Princess Looma, your guard will remain here as our honored guests. The princess considered this, then nodded regally. Acceptable, provided my safety is guaranteed. Of course, Max assured her. Though the slight tightening around his eyes suggested he was more concerned about Earth's safety than the Tetraman royals. The archaeological site was located at the base of Mount Rushmore, not far from the concealed plumber base that had served as headquarters during Ben's childhood adventures. Excavation equipment surrounded a massive pit where Earth had been carefully removed to reveal what appeared to be an ancient structure partially embedded in the mountainside. As their transport landed, Ben felt an immediate resonance, a humming in his bones that intensified as they approached the dig site. Without the Omnitrix actively transforming him, his senses had continued to evolve throughout the morning. Now he could perceive energy patterns flowing through the ground beneath their feet, converging on the excavation. There's something powerful here, he murmured. Something old. A woman in dusty field clothes approached as they disembarked. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, her features striking in their intelligent intensity. Despite the years since their last meeting, Ben recognized her immediately. Kai Green, he said, genuine surprise in his voice. You're running this dig. Kai's expression remained professionally composed, though her eyes widened slightly upon seeing him. Ben Tennyson. When the plumbers said they were sending someone, I didn't expect it would be you. Her gaze shifted to his companions, lingering briefly on Julie before settling on Looma with undisguised academic interest. A Tetraman Royal, judging by the armor markings. Fascinating. Dr. Kai Green, Ben introduced, this is Princess Looma Redwind of Tetraman, and you might remember Julie Yamamoto. Kai nodded politely to both women, though Ben detected a certain reservation in her manner. Their romantic history as teenagers had been brief and complicated, ending when Kai pursued her archaeological studies abroad. What have you found? Julie asked, professionally direct. Kai gestured toward the excavation. We were conducting a standard survey of pre-colonial Native American sites when our ground-penetrating radar detected an anomalous structure. Initial excavation revealed architecture unlike anything documented in North American archaeology. She withdrew a tablet from her satchel, displaying three-dimensional scans of the site. The construction materials include elements not found on the periodic table. Xenominerals, Julie concluded. Precisely. But that's not the most significant discovery. Kai led them toward the dig, continuing her explanation. The interior chamber contains engravings that match no known human language or symbolic system. However, she glanced meaningfully at Ben. They are striking similarities to symbols associated with certain alien technologies, particularly the Omnitrix. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. Show me. They descended into the excavation via a series of temporary scaffolds. The exposed structure became more clearly visible as they approached, a curved wall of material that resembled neither stone nor metal but something in between, with an iridescent quality that shifted under different angles of light. The material is impervious to conventional sampling techniques, Kai explained as they reached the bottom. We've been unable to date it accurately. But based on the surrounding geological strata, it's been here for at least 10,000 years, possibly much longer. She led them through a narrow opening where part of the wall had been exposed. Beyond lay a chamber approximately 30 feet in diameter with a domed ceiling. The space was empty except for a central pedestal and the engravings that covered every surface. Ben stopped in the entrance, overwhelmed by sudden familiarity. "I've been here before," he whispered. "Impossible," Kai stated automatically. "This chamber was sealed until we uncovered it 3 days ago." "Not in this lifetime," Looma said quietly, her own 4 eyes wide with recognition. "But before." Ben moved forward as if in a trance, drawn to the central pedestal. The engravings on the walls weren't raw endem decorations but mathematical equations of staggering complexity, multidimensional formulas describing the fundamental nature of reality itself. "These are prototype designs," he murmured, tracing a sequence with his finger. "Early iterations of the transformation matrix. I was working out how to compress dimensional potential into manageable packets." Julie approached cautiously, ship forming a protective layer around her hand as she reached out to touch one of the engravings. "Ben, these symbols, they're like the ones you were drawing in the air during the fight with the Templars." "Seventh-order quantum calculus," Ben confirmed, the knowledge surfacing naturally now. "The mathematical language of reality manipulation." Kai had been observing this exchange with growing interest, her archaeological training temporarily overcome by the living mystery unfolding before her. "Ben, what's happening to you? You're speaking about these artifacts as if you created them personally." Before he could formulate a response that wouldn't sound completely insane, Looma intervened. "He did create them, or rather, the being whose essence he now carries did so, eons ago." Kai's scientific skepticism was evident, but her archaeological curiosity won out. "You're suggesting these artifacts are connected to some entity that, what? Reincarnated as Ben Tennyson." A simplified explanation, but essentially correct, Looma confirmed. "That's," Kai began, then stopped as Ben approached the central pedestal. The structure rose from the floor like a natural formation, its surface bearing a single depression, a handprint with 6 digits rather than 5. Ben stood before it, feeling an inexorable pull toward completion of a circuit begun thousands of years ago. "Ben, wait," Julie cautioned, sensing his intent. "We should analyze this before you interact with it." "She speaks wisdom," Looma agreed unexpectedly. "Ancient activation systems often contain safeguards against unauthorized access." But Ben could feel the resonance building, the connection between himself and the device strengthening with each passing moment. "It recognizes me," he said simply. "It's been waiting." Before anyone could stop him, Ben placed his hand into the depression. His 5 human fingers splayed across the 6-digited imprint, an imperfect match that nonetheless completed the circuit. Light erupted from the pedestal, racing along the engraved equations that covered the chamber walls. The mathematical formulas animated, shifting and reconfiguring as if performing calculations in real time. The air hummed with energy that coalesced around Ben in a spiral of luminescence. "Ben!" Julie cried out, starting forward only to be restrained by Looma's powerful arms. "Do not interfere," the Tetraman princess warned. "The recognition protocol has initiated." Interruption could prove fatal. Within the column of light, Ben remained perfectly still, eyes wide as information flooded his consciousness. Not in human language but in pure mathematical concepts, the universal grammar of creation itself. Memories cascaded through his mind, not as sequential events but as connected nodes in a vast network of experience spanning billions of years. He remembered stars being born. He remembered designing the first DNA molecule as an elegant solution to replicating life. He remembered the faces of the 6 who stood with him at the foundation of reality, still indistinct but growing clearer with each pulse of energy from the pedestal. He remembered the great enemy T. had existed before existence, the void weaver that sought to unravel the cosmic tapestry. He remembered his final decision to fragment his consciousness across multiple realities, hiding from the Templar conclave that feared his power. And he remembered building this chamber, one of many repositories scattered across the cosmos, waiting for the day his essence would reawaken. The flood of Informa. Tian should have destroyed his human mind, but something was filtering it, adapting the cosmic knowledge to a form his consciousness could process. The Omnitrix on his wrist glowed with unprecedented brightness, its systems interfacing with the ancient technology. Gradually, the light receded, the equations settling back into their engraved forms. Ben remained standing, though his expression had transformed. A profound awareness now resided behind his familiar green eyes. Ben. Julie approached cautiously as Looma released her. "Are you all right?" He turned to her, seeing her with new depth, not just Julie Yamamoto. Brilliant xenobiology student and former girlfriend, but something more. A pattern, a resonance, a potential awakening not unlike his own. "I remember," he said simply, his verses. OICE carrying harmonic undertones that hadn't been present before. "Not everything, but enough to understand what's happening." "What is happening?" Kai demanded, her scientific training battling with the inexplicable events unfolding before her. Ben turned to the pedestal, passing his hand over its surface in a specific pattern. The top section reconfigured, opening to reveal a small crystalline object shaped like a hexagon. "This is a memory core," he explained, lifting the crystal carefully. "One of 6 created to store aspects of Celestus's knowledge until the time of reawakening. I, Cell, Estus, built this chamber approximately 12,000 years ago, during a brief manifestation on Earth." "Manifestation?" Julie questioned. "Celestus couldn't fully incarnate, but could project consciousness into reality to create these repositories." Ben studied the crystal, which glowed with inner light that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The Native American legends Kai studies, stories about star beings who visited Earth and shared knowledge with early humans, they were partially based on these events. Kai's eyes widened. "The sky gods in Navajo mythology, you're saying they were real? That you were one of them?" "Not exactly," Ben clarified. "More like echoes, fragments of consciousness reaching through time." He looked up, meeting her gaze directly. "Your ancestors preserved the knowledge, Kai. They were chosen as guardians because Celestus, recognized something in them. A genetic potential." Kai took an involuntary step backward. "What are you saying?" "The Navajo bloodline carries traces of one of the 6, Looma stated bluntly. The aspect of discovery, whose essence resonates with revelation and uncovering hidden truths. That's why you were drawn to archaeology," Ben added gently. "Why you've always been fascinated by uncovering the past. It's in your DNA." Kai's scientific mind rebelled against these mystical explanations, yet Ben could see the recognition dawning in her eyes, the pieces of her life's passion suddenly clicking into a larger pattern. "This is insane," she murmured, though her voice lacked conviction. A tremor ran through the chamber, dust cascading from the ceiling. Outside, alarms began to sound from the archaeological team's equipment. "Something's happening," Julie warned, ship flowing more fully around her in protective response. Ben closed his eyes briefly, his enhanced senses extending beyond the chamber. Multiple spatial disruptions forming above the excavation site. The memory core's activation has drawn attention. His eyes snapped open. "The Templars have found us. They emerged from the chamber to chaos. The sky above the dig site had darkened unnaturally, spatial rifts tearing open like wounds in reality. Through these apertures, celestial Templars were already descending, more numerous and better equipped than those who had attacked the Plumber base. "Containment Protocol Epsilon," shouted the archaeological site's security chief, a disguised Plumber operative who had been assigned to monitor Kai's discovery. The excavation team scrambled for cover as Plumber agents deployed defensive measures. "We need to get the memory core to safety," Ben declared, the crystal still clutched in his hand. It contains crucial information about the Void Weaver and how to contain it. The plumber transport is our best option, Julie suggested, ship already reconfiguring around her into battle mode. Looma flexed all 4 arms in anticipation of combat. I shall clear a path. None shall stand before the strength aspect. Quote, wait, Ben cautioned. The Templars aren't our only problem. He pointed to the largest spatial rift, where a different figure was emerging, a massive entity. Composed of what appeared to be living shadow, its form constantly shifting and reforming like smoke given malevolent purpose. A void fragment, Ben identified, ancient knowledge supplying the term. A piece of the Weaver that's broken through the dimensional barriers. How do we fight that? Kai asked, her academic detachment giving way to justified alarm. We don't, Ben said grimly. Not directly. Its physical manifestation is just a projection, the real entity exists between dimensions. He turned to Julie. Your symbiote, ship, might be our best weapon against it. Galvanic mechamorphs exist partially in subspace themselves. Quote, Julie nodded, her expression determined as ship's armor fully enveloped her. What do we need to do? Create a localized dimensional frequency that disrupts its cohesion, Ben instructed. Then paused in surprise at his own technical language. I mean, generate a specific energy pattern that will force it back through the rift. I can help with that, came a new voice from behind them. They turned to find a slender female figure with distinctive magenta skin and elastic limbs, a Kraho hybrid. Ben recognized her immediately. Esther, what are you doing here? Saving you, apparently, she replied with a quick smile that didn't fully mask her concern. My people detected the dimensional disturbances from our underground community. The elders sent me to investigate. They said it matched ancient warnings in our oral traditions. The Kraho were caretakers, Ben realized, another fragment of Celestus's knowledge surfacing. Guardians assigned to monitor dimensional weak points. Esther nodded, her expression suggesting this confirmed suspicions rather than provided new information. Our legends speak of a time when the walls between worlds would grow thin and the unraveler would reach through with fingers of shadow. She gestured toward the manifesting void fragment. That looks pretty unravelly to me. A blast of energy struck nearby, sending debris flying. The Templars had engaged the plumber agents, their advanced weaponry giving them a significant advantage despite being outnumbered. Explanations later, Ben decided. We need to move now. He closed his eyes, accessing the newly awakened knowledge from the memory core. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed in response, interfacing with the crystal's ancient technology. When he opened his eyes again, they glowed with emerald energy. Looma, take point. Julie and Ship, prepare to generate a dimensional disruption field on my mark. Esther, your people's heat manipulation abilities can strengthen the field. Focus on creating thermal barriers around the rifts. Kai, he turned to the archaeologist, who stood amid the chaos with remarkable composure, stay close to me. He memory core will respond to your genetic signature as well as mine. Everyone moved to comply without question, something in Ben's voice carrying the natural authority of ages. Even Looma, royalty herself, responded to the command structure with disciplined acceptance. The Tetraman princess charged forward, her forearms becoming a blur of devastating efficiency as she engaged the first group of Templars. Her fighting style combined formal Tetraman combat disciplines with innovative adaptations, evidence of a warrior who had studied beyond her culture's traditional methods. For the architect and the sextet, she bellowed, her battle cry echoing across the excavation site as she methodically dismantled the Templars' formation. Meanwhile, Julie, encased in Ship's evolved battle form, took position at the perimeter of the largest spatial rift. Ben transmitted complex calculations directly to Ship through the Omnitrix, mathematical formulas that the galvanic mechamorph processed and implemented with remarkable speed. Ready when you are, Julie confirmed, Ship's surface reconfiguring to generate the specialized energy field. Esther stretched her elastic limbs into position around the remaining rifts, her Kraho physiology allowing her to elevate her body temperature dramatically. The air around her shimmered with heat distortion. Thermal barriers forming, she reported, her voice strained with concentration. But I can't maintain this level for long. The void fragment had fully materialized now, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to absorb light from its surroundings. Its form suggested vaguely humanoid features, though they shifted constantly, never settling into a definite shape. Where it touched the ground, reality itself seemed to fray, objects within its influence becoming distorted or partially translucent. Now, Ben commanded, raising the memory core. The crystal blazed with internal light, responding to his will. Julie activated ship's disruption field simultaneously, while Esther channeled a surge of thermal energy into her barriers. The combined effect created a prismatic wave that collided with the void fragment. The entity emitted no sound, yet Ben perceived its shriek on a level beyond normal hearing, a mathematical discordance that rippled through multiple dimensions. The fragment's form began to destabilize, its edges unraveling, as it was forced back toward the spatial rift. "It's working," Kai exclaimed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her skepticism. But the fragment fought against the dissolution, reaching out with tendrils of darkness that sought purchase in physical reality. One such tendril lashed toward Kai with unerring precision. "Kai!" Ben shouted, interposing himself between her and the attack. The tendril struck the memory core instead, creating a feedback loop of energy. The crystal pulsed erratically, its harmonious glow becoming chaotic. Ben felt the connection between himself and the ancient device fluctuating wildly. "The core is destabilizing," he warned. "Everyone fall back." Looma, having dispatched the immediate Templar threat, rejoined them in time to see the memory core's disruption. "That device contains essential knowledge," she said urgently. "If it's destroyed—" "I know," Ben interrupted. "I'm going to try to stabilize it, but I need space." The others retreat, ed to a safe distance as Ben focused his newly awakened abilities on the crystal. The Omnitrix responded to his concentration, its interface adapting to channel and regulate the surging energies. "Come on," he muttered, fingers tracing complex patterns over the crystal's surface. "I built you once, I can fix you now." The memory core's erratic pulsing gradually steadied under his ministrations, but the damage had been done. As the last of the void fragment was forced back through the rift, Ben felt the crystal's internal structure beginning to collapse. "It's going to discharge," he realized aloud. "Everyone down." The warning came too late. The memory core released its stored energy in a blinding flash that engulfed Ben completely. To the others, it appeared as if he had been consumed by a sphere of pure light that expanded outward before imploding back into the crystal, which then shattered into dust. When the light faded, Ben remained standing, but his appearance had subtly changed. His eyes now held flecks of luminous green that glowed faintly in moments of concentration. Patterns of the same energy occasionally traced beneath his skin-like circuitry before fading from view. "Ben." Julie approached cautiously. "What happened?" He blinked, seeming to reorient himself. "The memory core's data. It transferred completely into me when the crystal destabilized. I now have all the knowledge it contained." He looked around at the others with a slightly dazed expression. "It's a lot to process." Kai studied him with renewed interest, her archaeological training giving way to personal concern. "Are you still Ben?" "Yes," he answered with certainty. "I'm still Ben Tennyson, but I also remember being Celestis now, not completely, but significant portions." He smiled faintly. "It's like having two lifetimes of memories to sort through." Looma approached, dropping to one knee in a gesture of formal respect that seemed at odds with her usual proud demeanor. "The awakening progresses faster than foretold. You honor us with your return, Architect." Ben looked uncomfortable with the reverential treatment. "Please don't do that, Looma. I'm still figuring this out. And kneeling doesn't help." The Tetraman princess rose, though her posture remained deferential. "As you wish, though tradition demands proper respect be shown." "The rifts are closing," Esther reported, watching as the spatial tiers in reality gradually sealed themselves. "But my people's sensors indicate similar disturbances forming elsewhere around the planet. Whatever's happening is spreading. The awakening is generating quantum ripples throughout the dimensional boundaries," Ben explained, the technical language coming naturally now. "My reconnection with aspects of Celestis's knowledge is causing harmonic resonances in the fabric of reality itself." "Which means," Kai prompted, her practical nature asserting itself. "It means we're running out of time," Ben translated. "The Templars will continue hunting me, and the Void Weaver is growing stronger. We need to find the remaining memory cores before either can get to them." Julie moved to his side, ship, reconfiguring into a less battle-oriented form while maintaining protective coverage. How many cores are there, and where are they located? 6 cores, each containing different aspects of Celestis's knowledge and power, Ben answered. This was the theoretical core, containing fundamental principles and basic historical data. The others are scattered across Earth and beyond, hidden in location. That resonate with their specific attributes. And each core corresponds to one of the 6 consorts, Looma added. The aspects who stood with Celestis at the foundation of reality. Esther's expression showed growing recognition. The Kraho stories mention 6 sacred sites where pieces of cosmic truth were hidden by the Star Wanderer. She glanced at Ben. That was you, wasn't it? Or Celestis, I mean. Ben nodded. The Kraho were entrusted with monitoring one of the sites, though the exact location may have been lost over generations. Not lost, Esther corrected. Protected. Durs passed the knowledge to each new generation, but were forbidden to approach the site directly unless the returner comes to claim what was hidden. Kai had been examining the chamber entrance during this exchange, her archaeological training drawing her attention to previously overlooked details. These markings, she called, pointing to a sequence of symbols near the doorway. They're different from the equations inside. They look almost like a map. Ben joined her, studying the engravings. With his enhanced perception and newly acquired knowledge, the symbols resolved into a clear navigational chart. You're right, it's a guide to the other memory cores. He traced the pattern with his finger. This indicates the next core is located somewhere in the South Pacific. That near OWS it down to about a third of the planet's surface, Julie observed dryly. The location would have significance, Kai suggested, thinking like an archaeologist. Cultural, geological, or historica. Importance that corresponds to whatever aspect this next core represents. Ben concentrated, accessing the transferred knowledge from the shattered core. The harmony core, he identified. It contains understanding of cosmic equilibrium and the balancing forces that maintain reality's stability. Balance, Esther mused. In the South Pacific, her eyes widened with sudden realization. The point of balance. The others looked at her questioningly. It's a legendary place in Kraho mythology, she explained, where fire and ice exist in perfect equilibrium. Our stories say it's located on an island that dances between worlds, appearing and disappearing with the tides. A volcanic island with glacial formations, Kai translated from mythological to geological terms. Possibly one subjected to regular seismic activity that could submerge and resurface portions of its landmass. Ben nodded slowly. That fits with what I'm seeing in these coordinates. We need to. He was interrupted by the arrival of plumber reinforcements, led by Rook Blanco. The Ravanaganders' usually composed features showed signs of stress as he approached their group. Ben, we have an urgent situation developing, he reported. The Incursine Armada has accelerated its approach. They will reach Earth orbit within 3 hours. What? Attea said 48 hours, Ben recalled. Empress Attea claims to have received intelligence regarding Tetraman movements and adjusted her timeline accordingly, Rook explained, glancing meaningfully at Looma. The Tetraman princess bristled visibly. Frog Empress fears I will secure the architect's favor before she can present her own claim. Whatever her reasons, Rook continued, Magister Tennyson requests your immediate return to headquarters. The situation has become diplomatically complex. Ben exchanged glances with Julie, both recognizing the understatement in Rook's careful phrasing. Complex likely meant Earth was facing unprecedented alien attention with potentially catastrophic consequences. We'll return immediately, Ben decided. But we need to prepare an expedition to the South Pacific as soon as possible. The next memory core is there, and we need to reach it before the Templars realize what we're doing. Rook nodded, though his expression remained troubled. I shall inform Magister Tennyson. However, I shall denote that Earth's governments are becoming increasingly concerned about the sudden appearance of multiple alien armadas in our orbit. The political pressure to respond forcefully is mounting. Great, Ben muttered. Cosmic awakening, ancient enemies, alien princesses claiming betrothal rights, and now potential interplanetary war. Could this get any more complicated? As if in answer to his rhetorical question, Kai's tablet chimed with an incoming communication. She checked the display, her expression shifting to one of professional excitement overlaid with personal concern. "It's from my research partner at the dig site in Egypt," she explained. "They've uncovered another structure with similar markings to this one. And," she hesitated, glancing at Ben, "they report Unasu Al energy readings and the appearance of a young woman who claims to be looking for you specifically." "Let me guess," Ben said wearily. "Dark hair, cat-like mannerisms, tendency to make feline puns." Kai's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Yes, actually. The report says she calls herself Nyansi Chan and insists she needs to find the one who shines with ancient light," her words, apparently. Julie and Ben exchanged startled glances. Nyansi had been a minor villain in their teen years, a young woman with the ability to control cats who had occasionally clashed with Ben more for mischief than malice. "Nyansi is connected to this?" Julie asked incredulously. "How is that possible?" Ben closed his eyes briefly, consulting the newly acquired knowledge from the memory core. When he opened them again, recognition dawned in his expression. "The guardian aspect," he murmured. "One of the six whose role was protection and vigilance. Their bloodline was entrusted with safeguarding the weakest dimensional boundaries." He looked at the others with growing certainty. "If Nyansi is manifesting those abilities now, it means another piece is falling into place. So we have Looma claiming to be the strength aspect, Attea presenting herself as the adaptation aspect, possibly Kai as the discovery aspect, and now Nyansi as the guardian aspect," Julie summarized, her scientific mind organizing the information systematically. "That's 4 of the 6 accounted for. And the other 2? Esther asked. Ben's gaze shifted to Julie, a new awareness in his expression as he studied her with Celestis's enhanced perception. Something in her quantum signature resonated at a frequency that seemed increasingly familiar, a pattern that the newly awakened part of him recognized with growing certainty. "I think we'll find out soon enough," he said quietly. The Plumber headquarters had transformed into an impromptu diplomatic center. Representatives from various Earth governments had arrived to address the unprecedented situation of 2 alien armadas in orbit, one Tetraman, one Incursine, with potentially more on the way if Ben's awakening continued to draw cosmic attention. Max Tennyson Liu, head exhausted but resolute as he coordinated both Earth's defense preparations and the delicate diplomatic negotiations. When Ben and his companions arrived, Max pulled him aside immediately. "The situation is deteriorating quickly," he informed Ben in a low voice. "The Incursine fleet is deploying in a defensive formation, claiming they're protecting Earth from Tetraman aggression. Meanwhile, Princess Looma's people are positioning themselves to block Incursine approach vectors. They're posturing," Ben concluded. "Both sides want to establish themselves as Earth's primary ally before the other can gain advantage." "Exactly. And Earth's governments are divided on how to respond. Some want to authorize immediate military action against both fleets. Others are advocating for formal diplomatic recognition of one side to secure protection against the other. Both approaches would be disastrous," Azimuth interjected, appearing on a nearby console. The Galvan had been coordinating with Plumber technicians to enhance Earth's defensive capabilities. "The power disparity is too great. Earth's military technology is centuries behind either species." Ben considered this complex situation, finding that his thoughts organized themselves with unusual clarity. The strategic implications unfolded in his mind like a multidimensional chess game. "We need to change the dynamic," he decided. "Right now, both Attea and Looma are positioning themselves as potential protectors of Earth, competing for the role. We need to shift their focus from competing against each other to demonstrating their worthiness as partners." The choice of word wasn't lost on Max, whose expression showed concern. "Partners. Ben, are you considering accepting these claims of mystical betrothal?" "Not exactly," Ben clarified. "But the legend of the 6 consorts clearly holds tremendous cultural significance for both societies. We can use that to our advantage, channel their competitive energies into something constructive rather than pushing them toward conflict." Max studied his grandson with newfound respect and a hint of concern. "That's surprisingly diplomatic thinking, Ben." Celestis was apparently quite the cosmic politician, Ben replied with a hint of his usual humor, though the reference to his awakening dual nature hung awkwardly between them. Before they could continue the discussion, a communications officer approached urgently. Magister Tennyson, Empress Attea is demanding direct contact with Ben Tennyson. She refuses to communicate with anyone else. Max sighed heavily. Put her through to the main conference room. No, Ben interrupted, a new resolve in his voice. I need to speak with her alone first. Ben, that's not protocol for Grandpa, Ben said gently but firmly. This situation goes beyond standard plumber protocols. Attea isn't just making political demands, she's responding to something far older and deeper. I need to understand exactly what she knows and what she wants before we can defuse this situation. After a moment's hesitation, Max nodded reluctantly. Conference room 3 has secure communications. But Ben, he added, lacing a hand on his grandson's shoulder, remember who you are. Whatever memories or knowledge are awakening inside you, you're still Ben Tennyson. Ben smiled reassuringly. That's what's keeping me grounded through all this. I won't forget. As Ben headed toward the designated conference room, Julie fell into step beside him. I'm coming with you, she stated simply. Ben considered objecting but found he welcomed her presence. Attea might not be pleased about having an audience. Too bad, Julie replied with characteristic directness. Besides, if these aspects are manifesting, I want to observe the interaction. Scientific curiosity. Ben suspected there was more to her motivation than academic interest, but he appreciated her support nonetheless. Together they entered the conference room, where a large communication screen dominated one wall. Establish connection to the Incarcine flagship, Ben instructed the automated system. The screen flickered to life, revealing Empress Attea in her royal chambers. Her attire was more elaborate than during their previous communication, ceremonial armor overlaid with symbols of Incarcine rulership. Her large, amphibian eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of Julie standing beside Ben. I requested a private audience, Tennyson, she remarked, her tone managing to be both regal and irritated. Julie stays, Ben replied simply. Now, would you like to explain why you've brought your entire armada to Earth ahead of schedule and positioned it in what could be interpreted as an attack formation? Attea's mouth quirked in what might have been amusement. Direct and commanding. Your awakening progresses nicely. She leaned forward slightly. To answer your question, intelligence reached me that the Tetraman princess had accelerated her own plans to claim you. I merely adjusted my timeline accordingly. I'm not a prize to be claimed, Ben stated firmly. No, Attea agreed unexpectedly. You're much more. You're the fulfillment of prophecies that have guided my people for millennia. Her expression grew more serious. But there's another reason for my haste. The Void Weaver stirs more actively than anticipated. Its fragments have begun manifesting throughout the galaxy. This confirmation of what they'd witnessed at the archaeological site caught Ben's attention. How do you know about the Void Weaver? As I told you before, the royal bloodline carries memories. Attea tapped her temple. When my father died, knowledge that had been dormant for generations transferred to me. I remember things, Tennyson. Things that happened before stars had names. You claim to be Slithora, the adaptation aspect, Ben said, testing her knowledge. Attea's reaction was immediate, her posture straightening, her eyes widening with recognition of the name. So you do remember. The fragmentation of your essence wasn't complete after all. I'm remembering gradually, Ben acknowledged cautiously. Enough to kn out that the Void Weaver was the enemy that even Celestis couldn't destroy, only contain. And the containment is failing, Attea confirmed grimly. That's why I couldn't wait. The ancient binding requires all 6 aspects to stand with the architect. Without us united, the Weaver will break through completely. Julie, who had been observing this exchange with scientific interest, finally spoke. If that's true, why position your fleet in opposition to the Tetramans? Shouldn't you be cooperating? Attea's gaze shifted to her, studying Julie with newfound interest. The harmony between aspects must be earned, not assumed. Each must prove worthy of standing beside the architect. Her attention returned to Ben. Besides, the frog and the rock beast were never compatible, even in the beginning times. Ben processed this information, correlating it with what he'd learned from the memory core. The original sextet wasn't formed from natural allies. Each aspect represented different, opposing forces that achieved balance through their combined presence. Precisely, Attea confirmed. Strength and adaptation. Discovery and harmony. Guardian and... She paused, her gaze flickering briefly to Julie before continuing. Creation. 6 fundamental forces embodied in 6 beings, with Celestis, with you, as the binding principle. And now you believe these aspects are reawakening in different individuals. Julie concluded. Not belief. Certainty. Attea's confidence was absolute. The genetic markers have been preserved through selective breeding across millennia. When the time came for the architect's return, the 6 would be drawn to him inevitably. Ben felt a growing unease at the implications. So this connection is predetermined. We have no choice in the matter. Attea's expression softened unexpectedly. The connection is destined, yes. But its nature, how it manifests between individuals, remains a matter of choice and compatibility. A hint of vulnerability showed through her usual imperious demeanor. In the original sextet, the relationship between Celestis and Slithora was complex. We were often at odds, yet our bond was perhaps the most adaptable of all. The personal pronoun wasn't lost on Ben. Attea wasn't just claiming descent from Slithora. In some fundamental way, she believed herself to be Slithora reborn or continued. I need time to process all this, Ben said finally, and Earth needs reassurance that it's not caught in the crossfire of an alien conflict. Will you stand down your fleet to a less aggressive posture? Attea considered this request. I will reposition to a diplomatic formation on one condition. You must come aboard my flagship. Alone. There are matters we must discuss that cannot be transmitted, even on secure channels. That's not happening, Julie interjected firmly. I wasn't addressing you, Attea replied coldly. Ben held up a hand to forestall further argument. I'll consider your request, Empress. But first, I need your guarantee that Earth remains unthreatened while these cosmic matters are resolved. Attea's expression calculated, weighing options and consequences with the political acumen that had allowed her to seize and hold the Incarsine throne despite her youth. Very well, she decided. I offer a formal declaration of protection. No Incarsine force will act against Earth or its inhabitants while the awakening proceeds. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Provided the Tetramans offer the same guarantee, I'll secure that from Princess Looma, Ben assured her. See that you do. Attea's tone softened marginally. The dreams have intensified, haven't they? Fragments of memory returning in sleep when your conscious mind relaxes its barriers. The question caught Ben off guard with its accuracy. Yes, he admitted. For me as well. Something almost gentle entered her expression. We dreamed together once, Celestis. Creating nebulae and shaping the spirals of galaxies. Perhaps we will dream together again. With that enigmatic statement, the communication ended, leaving Ben and Julie in thoughtful silence. Well, Julie said finally, she's certainly convinced of her cosmic significance. Quote, the thing is, Ben replied slowly, I think she might be right. When she spoke about dreaming together, it resonated with something in my memories. Not clearly, but there's a connection there. Quote, Julie studied him with a mixture of scientific curiosity and personal concern. How does it feel, having these memories of a completely different existence merging with your own? Ben considered the question carefully. It's like discovering a room in a house you've lived in your whole life but never knew existed. Everything looks both familiar and strange at the same time. He ran a hand through his hair in a gesture that was purely Ben Tennyson, not the cosmic entity he was partially remembering. The weirdest part is how natural it feels. The knowledge just fits. Like it was always there but I couldn't access it before. And the personal aspects? Julie asked more hesitantly. These relationships with the 6 that Attea and Looma keep referencing. Ben met her gaze directly. That's more complicated. I get impressions, emotional echoes, but nothing concrete yet. He paused, then added quietly, except that I'm increasingly certain you're connected to this somehow. Julie. She didn't appear surprised by this assessment. I've been feeling it too. Since Ship first started detecting those strange energy patterns, something has felt different. Like I'm remembering how to do things I never learned. Before Ben could respond, the door opened to admit Azimuth, who had apparently transported himself from the main control room. I've been analyzing the data from your encounter with the memory core, the Galvan announced without preamble. The quantum signatures are fascinating, they suggest a method of information storage that transcends conventional space-time limitations. That sounds like Celestus's work, Ben acknowledged. From what I'm remembering, I specialized in creating technologies that operated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Azimuth nodded, his large eyes studying Ben with scientific interest. Which brings me to a theory I've been developing regarding the Omnitrix. He gestured to the device on Ben's wrist. I've always maintained that I created it primarily as a tool for understanding and promoting empathy between different species. But certain aspects of its design have always puzzled me. What do you mean? Ben asked. Innovative leaps that seemed to come from nowhere, Azimuth explained. Solutions that appeared in my mind fully formed, as if remembered rather than discovered. The diminutive genius looked uncomfortable admitting this. I've always prided myself on understanding the fundamental principles behind my creations, but the Omnitrix contains elements had I implemented without fully comprehending their theoretical foundations. Ben and Julie exchanged glances as the implications became clear. You think Celestus influenced your creation of the Omnitrix, Julie stated. Not consciously, Azimuth clarified. But perhaps, inspiration from fragments of knowledge that remained in the collective unconscious of the galaxy. Echoes of his original transformation technology. Ben lifted his wrist, examining the familiar device with new perspective. So the Omnitrix isn't just responding to me because I happened to find it. It was designed, at some fundamental level, to recognize me. That would explain its unprecedented integration with your DNA from the beginning, Azimuth acknowledged reluctantly. Most beings would have required years of adaptation to achieve the symbiosis you established almost immediately. This revelation hung in the air between them, adding another layer to the already complex situation. There's more, Azimuth continued after a moment. Based on the data we've gathered, I believe the Omnitrix is serving as a regulator for your transformation. Without it, the awakening of Celestus's essence might have overwhelmed your human consciousness completely. Quote, so it's protecting me, Ben concluded. In a manner of speaking. It's creating a controlled interface between your human neural pathways and the vastly more complex consciousness attempting to manifest through them. Azimuth's expression grew concerned. However, this function may have limits. As more of Celestus's memories and abilities awaken, the strain on the interface increases. What happens if it fails? Julie asked the question Ben was thinking. Azimuth's response was characteristically blunt. Best case scenario. Ben's consciousness is subsumed entirely, replaced by Celestus's. Worst case. Both are destroyed in the process, leaving nothing but an empty shell. The gravity of this possibility settled over them. Ben absently touched the Omnitrix, feeling a renewed appreciation for the device that had been part of his identity for nearly a decade. We need to find the remaining memory cores, he decided. They contain knowledge that might help stabilize the integration process. Agreed, Azimuth said, and perhaps more importantly, they may contain information about containing the Void Weaver. If this entity is as dangerous as historical fragments suggest, its complete manifestation could threaten reality itself. Their discussion was interrupted by an alert from Ben's communicator. Max's voice came through with unmistakable urgency. Ben, we have a situation in the main hangar. Princess Looma just received news that apparently upset her. She's demanding to speak with you immediately. On my way, Ben responded, exchanging concerned glances with Julie. They hurried through the plumber base to the hangar bay, where they found a tense standoff developing. Looma stood in a combat stance, all four arms flexed in obvious agitation. Several plumber agents maintained a cautious perimeter around her, weapons not quite drawn but clearly ready. Ben Tennyson, the Tetraman princess bellowed upon seeing him. Explain this treachery. What treachery? Ben asked, approaching calmly despite the volatile situation. Looma thrust a communication device toward him. The screen displayed a stellar chart showing the positions of various fleets in Earth's vicinity. The Incarsine Armada has redeployed to a ceremonial formation used exclusively for royal courtship rituals. Attea moves to claim you while pretending to negotiate in good faith. Ben glanced at the display, recognizing the pattern as similar to what Attea had described as a diplomatic formation during their conversation. Looma, I just spoke with Empress Attea. She agreed to reposition her fleet to reduce tensions. Reduce tensions? Looma scoffed. This is a traditional Incarsine mating display. She flaunts her intentions before the entire galaxy. The Tetraman princess slammed one fist into her open palm with a thunderous impact. Such disrespect cannot stand. I will challenge her to combat for the right of first claim. The situation was escalating dangerously. Ben sensed the Tetraman cultural dynamics at play. Honor and precedence were fundamental concepts in their society, and perceived slights required immediate response. Princess Looma, he said, deliberately adopting a more formal tone. Before taking action, consider the strategic implications. The Templars have already attacked twice. The Void Weaver grows stronger. Conflict between potential allies only serves our enemies. Luma's 4 eyes narrowed as she considered this reasoning. Your words hold wisdom, Benjamin. But Tetraman honor demands response to such provocation. Ben thought quickly, drawing on his emerging knowledge of ancient protocols. Then respond with a demonstration of your own strength. Not against the Incarsines, but in preparation for the greater battle to come. What do you propose? Looma asked, her aggressive stance relaxing slightly. A formal declaration of protective intent, Ben suggested. Position your fleet in The Guardian formation from the ancient codes. It establishes your claim while maintaining defensive readiness against external threats. Luma's expression shifted from anger to surprise, then to grudging respect. You know the ancient codes. Increasingly, Ben acknowledged. Will you consider this alternative? After a moment's consideration, Looma nodded regally. It is an acceptable compromise that maintains Tetraman honor while serving the greater purpose. Her gaze intensified. But know this, Benjamin, when the time comes for formal recognition of the Sextet's rebirth, I shall answer. My claim is the strength aspect with all the force of Tetraman tradition. I understand, Ben replied diplomatically. As Looma communicated the new instructions to her fleet, Julie moved closer to Ben. That was impressive diplomacy, she murmured, though I'm not sure how long you can keep balancing these competing claims. Neither am I, Ben admitted quietly. But we need both their fleet. If the Templars launch a full-scale attack, and if the Void Weaver continues to manifest more powerfully, we'll need every ally we can get. Speaking of allies, Max interjected, joining them as Looma concluded her transmission drive. Green has been coordinating with her colleagues in Egypt regarding the site where Nyansi-chan appeared. Any news? Ben asked. Preliminary reports indicate He structure contains markings similar to the one you investigated here, but with distinct variations. And Nyansi herself is changed, according to witnesses. Changed how? Julie inquired. Repo. RTS describe her manipulating energy fields, not just controlling felines. And her appearance has apparently altered, distinctive markings appearing on her skin, eyes changing color. Max's expression showed concern. It sounds consistent with the transformations you're experiencing, Ben, though on a different scale. The Guardian aspect awakening, Ben concluded. We need to get to Egypt immediately. I've already authorized a plumber transport, Max confirmed. But Ben, with both the Incarsine and Tetraman fleets in Earth orbit, and now this development in Egypt, the situation is becoming increasingly complex. Earth's governments are demanding explanations I can't provide. Ben nodded understanding. I'll address them directly before I leave. If this is truly about the reawakening of cosmic entities and ancient threats, they deserve to know what's happening in their skies. As they turned to leave, Julie touched Ben's arm lightly. Are you sure you're ready for that? 24 hours ago, you were just Ben Tennyson, plumber agent with the Omnitrix. Now you're preparing to address world leaders as, what exactly? Ben considered the question seriously. I'm still figuring that out. But whatever's happening to me, however this integration between Ben Tennyson and Celestis develops, I can't hide from the responsibility it brings. He smiled wryly. Besides, explaining a lean weirdness to people in authority is practically a Tennyson family tradition at this point. Julie returned his smile, though concern lingered in her eyes. Just remember who your real friends are in all this. The ones who knew you before you started remembering being a cosmic architect. I couldn't forget that if I tried, Ben assured her sincerely. As they made their way toward the briefing room where Earth's representatives waited, Ben felt the weight of dual identities settling more firmly upon his shoulders, human hero and ancient deity, present responsibilities and primordial purpose. The memories continued to surface gradually, fragments of a cosmic existence merging with his human experiences. And somewhere in the space between heartbeats, he caught a fleeting impression of 6 figures standing beside him at the foundation of reality, their faces growing clearer, their presences more distinct with each passing moment. The cosmic reunion that had begun billions of years ago was accelerating, drawing together threads of destiny that spanned galaxies and transcended time itself. In that moment, Ben understood with sudden clarity that he stood at the threshold of transformation, not just personal, but universal. Whatever came next would reshape not only his identity, but potentially the fabric of reality itself. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, he felt a strange sense of coming home. Chapter 2 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.